And welcoming Kevin and Anna Rose and Marcelino.
Hello.
It's so great to have y'all here. And what we just saw was just extraordinary. And thank y'all for taking the time to visit with all of us. Bravo to the Royal Ballet. Kevin, I wanted to start with you. Could you share with us some of your thought process behind the particular ballets that we just saw and how you programmed them?
Yes, thank you. We're delighted to be here, so thrilled to be here. And, I think when putting together something like that, I like to think of it as sort of for audiences away from London and England, that it's a window into the Royal Ballet, and to see, as if you're looking through and seeing all the different gems that we have in the company repertoire. And so I wanted to reflect that really in the program. So, obviously the classics. I think we're quite unusual as a classical ballet company. We have these sort of three big strands, which is, of course, we're a classical ballet company, so we do those big Petipa classics, the Swan Lakes, the Nutcrackers, the Sleeping Beauties. And then we have this extraordinary duo, really, of choreographers. Our founder choreographer, Frederick Ashton, and the next choreographer after that was the resident choreographer, Kenneth Macmillan, who really, the two of them defined what really the Royal Ballet is today. And then thirdly, in the last sort of decade or so, we have this onslaught of great new choreographers working with the company. And so it's a huge repertoire that we have to get through, but so the idea is to really show you all as much as we can of that repertoire.
It's just fantastic, really, really fantastic. What are some of the accomplishments in your time as artistic director up to this point that you're most proud of?
People like this. It's sort of, I'm not going to get emotional now, but it is amazing because, of course, Anna Rose and Marcelino were at the Royal Ballet School when I took over in the company. So they're people that I brought into the company from the school, and now they're leading the company as principal dancers. So it's quite extraordinary. I sort of made it a passion of mine to really work with the Royal Ballet School, because the Royal Ballet School obviously is our school, but we're not connected with our management. We're run separately. But I felt if you're a young person in England, maybe going to the White Lodge or coming in at 16, you want to know that there is a pathway for you if everything goes well. And so I was really determined that really we take from the Royal Ballet School. And so there's people that saw Anna Rose at White Lodge and the upper school, and then they can aspire to be Anna Rose, when they join White Lodge, and I think that's really important. So it's about inspiring each generation as it goes along.
It's beautiful. I'd love to hear from both you, Anna Rose and Marcelino, because you had slightly different experiences. Anna Rose, you came through the whole system up from the lower school, and then Marcelino, you joined in the upper school. So could you just share with us a little bit about the process of training and maybe some of the distinctives of the English style, and then maybe Marcelino, how it felt coming from Lisbon into that English system a little bit later on?
Yes, so I joined the Royal Ballet School from the age of 8. I joined the junior associates, and I remember the classes on a Saturday very fondly, and they sort of took you right back to the basics and taught you from the toes upwards how to refine the English style. And then I went to the Royal Ballet Lower School from the age of 7 to 11, and then into the upper school from 16 to 18, where I met Marcelino. And from there, I joined the company, so I really feel like I've done many years of Royal Ballet School life and training, and have a deep appreciation and loyalty to the company. And it was always my dream to become a principal ballerina of the Royal Ballet, so I feel extremely blessed to have achieved that. And I feel a responsibility now, to see young people like myself back in that day, to inspire them. So, yeah.
What are some of the qualities in movement that were emphasized in how you were trained that you feel that responsibility and loyalty to?
I think in particular the the quick footwork. Frederick Ashton's work is incredibly special to the Royal Ballet Company, and also Kenneth Macmillan's and many other choreographers. But in particular, I think the style of the musicality with the feet is something that I think English ballet was known for. There are many, many qualities in dance in the English vocabulary. It's hard to pinpoint one thing. I think it's telling a story through dance as well. So a lot of the narrative works, being very naturalistic in your acting. They're the ballets that are really inspiring to dance. And I think they come through really strongly in the Royal Ballet's repertoire in many different ways.
That's fantastic. And Marcelino, coming from Portugal to the Royal Ballet School, what was some of the contrast with how you had been trained and what you learned and then becoming part of that?
Well, my beginning in dance was African dance, so that was the first connection I had with movement. And then pinballing many years gone by, I started doing ballet in a very random way and really connected with it more than anything else that I've ever done. And then I started doing some international festivals, competitions, and I remember one of the galas that I did in America, I saw this couple from ABT doing Kenneth Macmillan's Romeo and Juliet Balcony Parade. And until then, I thought ballet was one way, and I thought I knew what ballet was, and I knew what I had to achieve, and I knew that I had to be this, this technical, like performing for love rather than performing from love. But then when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, this is something that really comes within, and it's not for anyone else apart from this that on stage. And that's when I knew I wanted to go to Royal Ballet. And then I got a scholarship to go to the school, and that was such a special moment for me, because I thought, like, maybe I have that inside thing that I think it's needed in the Royal Ballet. And I've been searching for that all my life until now, and I every day strive towards that. And I think that's what's so special about the Royal Ballet, is that we perform from such a connected place rather than to offer everything to the audience. I think there's something really special about that environment in England. Yeah.
Both Kevin and Marcelino, I'd love to hear your comments on partnering. You both dance so much of this repertory, and the emphasis on partnering is so clear and so challenging. And I would love to just hear your thoughts about that. Between Macmillan and then now with Wheeldon and Sir Wayne.
Yes, it is true. It's it's interesting actually, because that goes through the school as well. And when I see the young men coming through the school, the partnering is really important during those formative years. And Kenneth Macmillan really elevated the sort of art of partnering within, again, as Anna Rose was saying, telling stories. And so everything needs to look seamless. But of course, the man is working super hard to make that happen. And I think, interestingly, though, I think Kenneth's pas de deux, even though they're very hard, they are actually very organic, and the way one step leads to the other, one lift leads to the other, really works. I found, probably Marcelino didn't because he's a very talented dancer, but I always found the solos of Kenneth's were really hard and sort of didn't feel quite the same way, whereas the pas de deux just flow and they're beautiful. But they really are a skill, and it's interesting when sometimes dancers come for whatever reason to the Royal Ballet, maybe to guest for something. When they do those pas de deux, they really find it hard, even though they've done probably Swan Lake and Sleeping Beauty and all of those things. It's a really interesting way of partnering.
I think it needs a whole lot of communication, these pas de deux. It's much less, girl needs to be here, boy needs to be there. It's much more an organic feel. And I think the emotional content of each duet or each moment you have in a Macmillan ballet really informs how the movement is going to be. If there's something a bit more stern, the partnering is a bit more, more guided towards the man, maybe. But if there's something that is expressing love, it has to be really connected, and really the breath has to be really together. I think it's so organic, like Kevin said. It's really coming from a place of human form rather than ethereal.
And it's amazing to see how both Christopher Wheeldon and Sir Wayne McGregor have extended partnering that much further, in addition to all the other dimensions of their choreographic brilliance. And Marcelino, both you and Anna Rose have participated in a lot of creations with Wayne and with Christopher Wheeldon. And I'd love for, however you'd like to share it, but to take us into the studio with Christopher Wheeldon and Sir Wayne McGregor and talk a little bit about their creative processes.
Each choreographer is very different, but I think both challenge you in a very different way. When you're working with Christopher Wheeldon, I would say it's driven perhaps generally more from the story. So the work is sort of guided almost like a play. As dancers, we sort of plot through the ballet and we create the scene as we know what we're trying to tell with our body. I think with Wayne McGregor, it's perhaps a bit more experimental. It's sort of done in a workshop way, I found in my experience, that you've created lots of pas de deux and lots of movement, and then all of a sudden he'll say to you, oh, could you reverse it and then invert it, and then can we go from that way being the front? And you're like, ooh. It's like, yeah, it's quite, yeah, I'd say it really challenges your mind and your body at the same time, and pushes dance in a very different way, makes you maybe think about it in a completely different manner. And with Christopher Wheeldon, sometimes it can feel almost like a showpiece or a musical, but also telling the story through ballet. So that's also really challenging and interesting. And you bounce off each other's characters and energy, and the pas de deux are really quite something. Yeah. Everything's amazing, to be honest.
I don't have much to add, but I do think that that's very correct. I think the way that the ballet forms is very important for Chris Wheeldon. I think from the beginning it really has a really strong plan and a really strong vision of how it's going to be. And then when magical things happen in the studio, it comes from all that project that he has done, the preparation that he has done. I think Wayne is he loves elastic brains. He loves an elastic studio. He loves to pull and push and explore, and he's not afraid to dismantle a beautiful duet that he did that is like 10 minutes, and then he's going to break it in 4 parts, and he's going to put the end to the beginning, and then he's going to reverse it, and it's like, I sometimes feel like, oh my God, is this good? And then when you see the result, it's like, wow, you could have never done something like that if you had just like tried to make a beautiful piece, you know, like, I think it challenges more the dancers and the audience members to like really like kind of flip around with him. I think that, yeah, it's 2 different visions, but super, super unique and special.
Dame Nanette de Valois talked about how in every dancer there's a teacher or a choreographer in embryonic form, and you all have so many different initiatives to help dancers develop those other non-performing parts of themselves, whether that's teacher training or different kinds of choreographic fellowships or leadership development. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. I was really pleased to hear your talk, and recently I've just been saying that we could be quite proud of the people in the last few years that have taken on leadership roles from the company. So, you know, you mentioned Federico and Carlos and Leanne and also Alexander Ferry, and one of our principal dancers, Alexander Campbell, has just taken over the Royal Academy of Dancing. So it feels great that. And I think we're very aware of it, that the career is, as a dancer, is short. And so it's really important to really give everybody as many skills as possible. And I was very lucky when I was thinking about what to do next, that people were really kind to me and gave me opportunities to shadow and work and go in different places. And so I've really tried to do that since I've got the ability to do that. And of course the Royal Opera House is a huge place, so you can learn so much within that one building. You know, you could just go into a marketing office or a financial office or anything, and you would learn so much. You know, we have an amazing wardrobe department, all of these things. And so yeah, I try and encourage that. And then we also have on the other side, choreographically, we have our Draftworks program, and we have different events, like we have a family Sunday where we can give opportunities for people to choreograph, and also working within education. Both Anna Rose and Marcelino have been part of many education project across the country, really, and it's really fantastic. That in a way, I remember you doing FEE for a chance to dance, with all these young kids around. But how brilliant is that? That was your first opportunity to do that, but also for them to see such fantastic dancers and role models.
That's fantastic. Let's take maybe 2 questions from the audience as we close around.
It's quite noticeable or striking how strong the company is in acting and really communicating relationships, and especially when you've got just one scene of a ballet to bring everyone into that relationship. And I was wondering if, I imagine from the school you may know from roles they've done what kind of actors they are, but do you intentionally hire people? Is there a way to test people that they're not just technical dancers, but they have that kind of capability, or is it just that you train them through this kind of repertoire of the acting? It's really wonderful.
No, it's an interesting point. You don't really know, I suppose. I remember seeing Marcelino in a contemporary class, and they did an improvisation, and I just was like, wow, this guy can do it. And so you remember those little moments. But we also have this wonderful competition called the Lynn Seymour competition, and it's in the second year of the upper school, and it's a private competition, so audiences aren't allowed. And since I became director, myself and the former director, Monica Mason, and I are the judges, and it's for the one time only at school. They're allowed to choose any solo as long as it has some dramatic quality. So of course now with YouTube you find everything. So there's such an eclectic selection of solos, but it's a really great opportunity to see what dancers can do with whether it's telling a story or movement. And I can remember, Lucas Brendersrod, who just sadly didn't see the end of After the Rain, but I remember him doing a solo from Alvin Ailey's Revelations, and I went, wow, I think he should join the company. And so and just the way he did it and performed it. So it's an interesting point. But I think a little like both Anna Rose in different ways and Marcelino, I think if you want to be part of the Royal Ballet, that's in you. You want to tell stories and want to tell them in a really naturalistic way. And I think it's sort of in their spirit. Yeah, that's an interesting question as well. Can you spot a principal dancer early on? I personally couldn't. I don't think anybody could really at 10, 11 years old, I think, I remember when I was at school, you were always the next, in my era, so every young girl was the next Leslie Collier, and every talented young boy was either the next Anthony Dow or the next David Wall. Certain people talk like that. But no, you really don't know. And sort of when they join the company, you've got a feeling, but it's really, I love the fact that everybody has a different trajectory, and it's fascinating to see that, and when people start to blossom and how they can grow in different things. And that's what's great about having a fantastically large repertoire, because that can suddenly happen, many years later. You can be in the company a long time, and then suddenly something turns a corner in you, and you go off and suddenly become this amazing dancer that can do many, many roles. So I think we've got that in the company, haven't we? We've got a really huge range of principal dancers who have come to become principal dancers in different times of their career, but all deserving of that role. So it's, I think it's a little bit in the stars aligning.
Well, you saw it in both Anna Rose and Marcelino, and thank you for your vision and for all of your generosity tonight, and we celebrate your whole company. Thank you.
Thank you so much.